Hey, welcome back to the Lick of the Week video. I've been thinking for the past few days where we should go next with these video lessons, and it dawned on me that I've never really covered chords very extensively. We've talked about chords a bunch in the videos concerning licks and how licks function out of chord shapes. But now I want to go back and just cover basic chord structures, what makes a chord, why it's formed the way it is, how you use them in songs, because they're probably one of the most important things you'll ever learn as a musician on a string instrument is using chords. So let's spend some time in the next few videos exploring these chord shapes and how they work. Now there's two basic ways to learn chord shapes. One is to mimic what you see, what a chord shape looks like, memorize its location on the fingerboard, and there's value in that, and that's how a lot of people learn chord shapes and how they work, is to mimic what they see. And you know, the typical chord book will show you a picture of someone's hand on the fingerboard and explain to you that this is a G chord, and you try to memorize what that looks like and where your fingers go, and that's great, and that's definitely something that will help you. But I think a better way to approach chords is to have an understanding, even a basic understanding, of what a chord is and where the notes are on the fingerboard. So eventually, if you become fluent enough in understanding how chords work, that you can make chords without having to look at a book or necessarily mimic what you see, which is a better way. So it's understanding chords versus mimicking chords, I guess you could say. So hopefully these videos will help you understand how these chords function, so that you won't be so dependent on looking in a chord book and copying what you see there without understanding. So having said all that, let's just jump right in. Let's deal with major chords first, since they're going to be of prime importance to you. Majors and minors are the two most prevalent chords in the kind of music we play in old time and bluegrass music, and most pop music is based the same way. Major chords and minor chords make up the majority of the shapes and chord names that you'll use in popular songs. So let's start with the major chord. We know on the banjo that we have three basic shapes. We have the 1, the 2, and the 3, which is my reference to the F, the D, and the bar chord. So you have three distinct ways to make each major chord, which is what we're going to talk about in this video, on the banjo. So since we're tuned to G, let's start with G major. So to understand these shapes and how they work, we need to understand what a major chord is. A major chord is three notes from a major scale played at the same time in combination, and it's referred to as a major triad. A major triad is a big theory term which is pretty easy to understand. Triad meaning three, the first, third, and fifth notes of a scale. Now a banjo is said, say for bluegrass banjo, is said to be tuned to open G. Alright, to call this open G tuning, we have to understand what that means. Open G tuning means basically that you tune to the notes of a G major chord. So we know the fifth string is G, D, G, B, and another D. Alright, now to understand that open G tuning, we first must realize that the nut of your banjo is the same thing as a bar chord. So the nut is actually functioning like your finger, and so open G means that you're in a bar chord, basically, and the nut is taking the place of your finger. And if we take the notes of a G scale, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G, and we give each one of those notes a number, we'll have 8 notes, with the 8th note being the same as the first. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, and then they repeat up into the next octave. So you only have those 7 notes, and the 8th note starts the pattern over again. So if we give each one of those notes a number, G would be 1, A would be 2, B would be 3, C would be 4, D would be 5, E is 6, F sharp is 7, and then if you go up one more, 8 would be G again. Now let's look at the shapes. The first place you can actually make a full G major chord on the banjo, other than the bar chord, which is being held by the nut, is what I refer to as the number 1 shape, also called the F shape. And I think the reason this is called the F shape is the first place you can fully form this shape is F major. But since we're tuned to G, and we're going to study G first, let's figure out why we're holding this formation. Now, again, going back to what I said in the beginning of the video, one way to learn this shape is just to memorize where someone's fingers are without really knowing why you're doing it. And there's value in copying that, but it's really better to understand what you're doing as opposed to not understanding. So, and really it's not that hard when we're talking about basic chords like majors. So let's understand where these triad notes are in relation to this shape. So we know we need the first, third, and fifth notes of a major scale to make a major chord. So G, if we study these notes, G, B, and D would be the first, third, and fifth notes out of the scale. Now, where are the first, third, and fifth notes in relation to this chord shape? The second string, index finger, third fret, is a D note. How do we know that? Here's the open second. B, C, C sharp, D. So there's one of our triad notes. That's the fifth note out of the G scale. The third string at 4 is a B note. How do we know that? Well, let's look at the open open G. G, G sharp, A sharp, B. So there's the third note of the G scale, one of the triad notes. So we have a D and a B. What about the fourth string note? Fourth string at the fifth fret. Okay, let's start with the open 4. D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G. Aha! So there's the note that gives the chord its name, also called the root note, G. So guess what? If we played the fourth string here, the third string at 4, the second string at 3, and we just played these 3 notes, we'd have a G major chord. G, B, and D constitute that major triad. But now we have the first string at 5. Well, since the first string is tuned the same as the fourth, if we fret both strings at the same fret, guess what? We get the same note, just an octave apart. So we found out that the fourth string is a G. Now we know that the first string is also a G, just an octave higher. So we have G, B, and D, and another G note. We have a leftover G note, which we can play or not play. So the reason you're forming this shape in this particular way with the notes lined up in this particular order is not random. It's based on some theory which says you need to find a G, a B, and a D to make a G major chord. So, and we won't count the fifth string in these videos. We're just going to consider it. It's also tuned to a G, but let's not worry about it right now. So here we have our basic number 1 shape. Now, the triad notes again line up 1, 3, 5, and then we have another 1 over here. So the basic triad notes are aligned on the fingerboard because of the way you're tuned in such a way that you must align your fingers in certain shapes. You know, we have 3 basic shapes to make major chords. So there is your number 1 shape. And again, all these shapes are movable. So if you wanted to move this G to say G sharp, you would slide the entire chord shape up 1 fret, not changing the arrangement of notes. Now guess what? You will have, without really realizing it, unless you know a little bit of basic theory, you also have the major triad notes for G sharp major. Here is G sharp, here is C, here is D sharp, here is another G sharp. So you have the notes, the 1, the 3, and the 5, the triad notes, already under your finger. So you can move this shape anywhere on the neck and play the major triad notes you need to name that chord anywhere on the neck, as long as you keep your fingers in the right formation. So there's the number 1 shape. And since we're doing these videos on chords, I'm going to include a couple more videos this week so that we can cover a lot of ground from the beginning. So we'll call this video for shape number 1, and I'll see you next video. Thanks.